And now, the survival show that once survived not watching 20 consecutive Super Bowls. In this episode, we sit down with Jeanna Cournoyer of Fight Back Fit to discuss firearms and self-defense training. Howdy and welcome to In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 205. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. Jeanna, welcome to In the Rabbit Hole.
Aaron, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
So you've got a new baby girl and you've been doing all this stuff and we haven't gotten a chance to talk in a while. So I am excited to get a chance to catch back up with you and have you on In the Rabbit Hole. We had you on another show. So let's start here today with how did a country girl become the female John Wick?
Well, kind of crazy. Like, I can give my husband probably credit for that.
He should savor that. That's a rare thing.
Yeah, he should. He doesn't get credit like that often. 11 years ago, he drugged me into a self-defense class called Krav Maga, kicking and screaming. I, as a country girl, of course, that I knew how to defend myself. I was very wrong once you really kind of get into the reality of violence on the street. I just didn't know what I didn't know. And when I walked into that class, it changed my life. And I realized that I wanted to get more involved and see what this was all about. And going from living in the country to now living in Houston, we're now the third largest city, correct? I think it was the fourth.
I think so.
But third largest city, lots of crime. My husband wanted to make sure that I was able to protect myself when he wasn't around. He used to travel a lot to Asia 11 years ago, and he couldn't be in the country. So, his solution was to give me the tools to be able to defend myself. So really, that's kind of how it all started.
So, and I know like your resume for firearms and self-defense and stuff is pretty long, but I think one of the most interesting things that jumps out anytime I look at your, I guess, combat resume, we'll call it there basically, is fear and adrenaline stress training. What is that?
So basically we focus not just on, the attack portion. We talk about when you're dealing with fear and adrenal stress training is what actually happens to our bodies under stress, first of all, and how to work through all of the things that are happening. Basically, we lose access to complex thought. We get auditory exclusion. Our earlobes actually swell up. We get tunnel vision, shortness of breath. Time seems to slow down. All of these things are happening. There's a dump of adrenaline into our body. We don't have access to fine motor skills. And people don't really understand that until they're living it or they're in that. So what we do is we do offer some programs where it starts with awareness training. You're learning how to be assertive with your body language. You're learning how to be assertive with your voice rather than being passive. And that's a big part of it, especially for women, learning how to use their voice if they're able to in a situation before it may become physical, and learning to recognize the signs of a potential situation that could be an attack situation, or learning how to deal with an aggressor. So, we kind of break it into parts, but we start with the awareness side and the assertiveness with our voice and creating boundaries and learning how to work through that. Because that actually translates in every part of our life, not just being able to defend ourselves, but, learning how to deal with a difficult coworker or a bully or, someone on the street that may approach you. And maybe they are interviewing you, or they're testing you out to see if you are an easy victim. So we start there with that awareness side of it. And giving our students the tools to be able to use their voice. Because if you can de-escalate a situation before it becomes physical, that's absolutely our, the path of least resistance, and that's the path that we would like to choose. And it's also about learning to, understand and recognize the body language of ourselves and how not to be seen as an easy target, but also the body language of possible, we'll call them turds, right?
Mm-hmm. I think turds is a good word. Yeah.
I like that term. That's what I like to use.
You said something really interesting, and I don't know if I've ever heard it before or not. I can't think that I ever have, but you talk about these turds interviewing victims. Can you elaborate on that? That's pretty interesting. I haven't really heard about that before.
Yeah, just like police officers are interviewing, perps, aggressors also potentially interview their victims, to see if they're going to be an easy target. Because most predators, human predators, just like animal predators, they want an easy target. They don't want to have to work hard. They're cowards. They're looking for that easy victim. If they're approaching you on the street and maybe they come up to you in a gas station, they may be asking you for money, or they may be asking you for directions, or they're testing you to see they're interviewing you to see if you are the easy target that they're looking for. So right there, and that may be through them telling you their sob story or trying to distract you while their buddy comes around the backside up from behind you to really kind of see if you're the person that they want to attack, or if you're not worth their time and they want to move on to someone that may be an easier target. So by that, I mean, they're interviewing you to see if you're their easy target.
That's an interesting concept. Like I said, I don't think I've ever really delved into that before. That's pretty fascinating. So I guess what are some of the examples of that? Just them coming up to you and kind of harassing you and seeing how you react to that?
Yeah, possibly. They're looking at your body language just like you should be observing their body language. Body language accounts for about 80% of our communication, that nonverbal communication. We have your tone of voice, you have your body language, and you have words that you actually speak. And before they even come up to you, they're studying your body language. We talk a lot about in our fear and adrenal stress training is body language is so important of how are you portraying yourself to possible attackers. Are you that passive person? Are you the weak and feeble, the easy person that's not going to resist or doesn't look like they would be able to fight back just based on their body language? And then once they approach you, if they're going to start a conversation up with you, I mean, I've had multiple people approach me at gas stations, and maybe they're just asking for money, or maybe they're just asking for directions, but they may also be testing you out to see if you are, maybe I can get more out of this person. Maybe I can get their purse, but maybe I can get their purse to also take them somewhere else. If we can start it right there with being confident in your body language and de-escalating a situation based off of how we're looking. We want to be assertive with our body language, but we also want to be assertive with our voice and being able to create boundaries and say no. And if you've ever had someone approach you on the street, they give you their sob story of, oh, well, so-and-so or blah, 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 blah. And through our verbal de-escalation, we teach our students to, first of all, you control the situation by asking them short verbal cues. How can I help you? What do you need? Right there, you're cutting to the chase, asking them, what do you want? Why are you approaching me? I don't know you. You don't know me. Why are you coming up to me on the street? If I'm a female, as a single female by myself, why are you coming up to me at a gas station? What do you need from me? And right there, we're cutting to asking them those direct questions. Oh, well, I need money. Okay. Well, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And we're teaching our students to pick up on their body language, but to also use short verbal commands in an assertive voice, because that's also important. I can tell someone no, but if I'm not confident in my answer, they're going to see that as well. So my tone of voice, but also creating boundaries with my body to tell them that, hey, I'm not that easy victim that you may think that I am. And I'm going to give you a fight. And I can say all of that through my body language. And I can say all of that through my tone of voice and my assertiveness. But the key is to use short verbal commands, like I said 5 times already, of what do you need? And then once they give you an answer, I don't need to even listen to their answer. Like, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And if at that point they are still sticking around, that's going to tell you a lot about their intentions. If they aren't leaving and I've told them, no, I can't help you, you need to go somewhere else. If they keep pressing that, we have levels of awareness that we talk about. We have yellow level, which is, okay, someone's approaching me on the street. I don't really know them. I need to, I am somewhat aware. Okay, this is out of place. Then if they don't leave after you've told them, sorry, I can't help you, then we need to escalate that situation maybe to an orange and be a little bit more assertive with our voice. No, I said no, you need to leave. And we almost become like a broken record if they don't stop and they keep trying to tell you their story. And if at that point they're still not leaving, or if they make any kind of movement maybe to close the distance, we then escalate to a red situation, which at that point it's go time. It's time to fight back. So we kind of work through these different levels. Now, again, this is if somebody is approaching you before anything physical has ever happened. And that goes back to that interview. They're interviewing you to see if you are an easy target. And our goal is to de-escalate that before it ever becomes physical, to make them feel that I'm not worth their time. I'm not worth the fight. And that if they do move forward, that they're going to get a fight, basically.
That brings up going to, I guess, that condition red there and getting into hand-to-hand combat, self-defense, martial arts. But there is a distinction there between self-defense and martial arts. For you, like, what is that distinction?
Most martial arts, a lot of them are mostly competitive fighting sports. You have competing in the ring where there's rules and there's one opponent, and you've trained for a month to fight this one person who weighs the same as you. They have the same amount of experience. That is really what most combative sports martial arts are focusing on. Whereas self-defense is survival. There's no rules. You'll do whatever you have to do to win. There may be multiple threats. It's not just one person. You can strike the groin. You can hit the back of the head. I can spit in your eye. I can bite you, eye gouge you, whatever I need to do to survive, and there could be more than one person. There could be a weapon. You don't have any of that when you're really working and dealing with competitive martial arts. So there are small bits of self-defense in fighting in the ring. Absolutely. But self-defense focuses on a very different part of that. And we're working scenario training where you don't know where the fight is coming from. You don't know who your opponent is. You don't get to choose, I'll take this fighter or I won't take this fighter. Those aren't your options on the street. Your attacker is probably bigger, stronger, twice your size, or has a weapon. And these are all the things that we really deal with. And the mindset of being able to go from 0 to 100 in the flip of a switch, which mindset is a big part of self-defense training. Like you have to be able to fight back when you may not want to, or you think that everything is safe and you live in a safe neighborhood, so you don't have to worry about those things. But, that can happen to anyone, anywhere. Nobody is excluded from that. Where in traditional martial arts, you get to choose whether you want to take a fight, whether you want to deal with that opponent. That's really not the case when we're dealing in realistic self-defense. We're dealing with scenarios. You're walking out to your car. Someone tries to attack you while you're getting into your car. How do you deal with those situations? And that's really our focus, is real life scenario training.
From what I understand of the history of Krav Maga, that is really what it was about. I mean, that and trying to teach it something that could be taught rapidly. Is that why you've gotten so heavily into Krav Maga? Is that really what attracted you, or what? Take us there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's practical. It's realistic. It's no nonsense. There's no rules. It works for everyone, men, women, tall, short, older, younger. You don't have to be physically fit to be able to defend yourself. Now, it makes a big difference if you are physically fit. You are going to be able to be more powerful and stronger and last longer if you have to fight someone off for an extended period of time. But you don't have to be physically fit to do so. And Krav Maga is designed to work for everybody of all shapes and sizes. So, and that was why Krav Maga was created out of Israel, is that everybody had to serve in the, men and women had to serve in the military. And it wasn't just their strongest warriors that were the ones that are on the front lines fighting. And it is translated very well into the civilian world, and that, when you are attacked on, if you were a female attacked on the street, or a smaller man, or you had to deal with multiple opponents, it has to be a system that works for everybody. And like you said earlier, it can be learned quickly, relatively quickly, and retained for long periods of time, because Krav Maga is based off of our instinctive reactions as human beings. They really studied the human body and developed self-defense techniques that we do certain motions instinctively as humans under stress. If somebody is hitting you, our hands go up, or if someone puts their hands on your throat, you are going to bring your hands to where the choke is. These are instinctive movements that we already do as human beings. So in that, it's easy to do and remember, because we're already in that state. We're already doing these basic movements. And Krav Maga has just really taken in and made defenses out of what we're already doing instinctively.
How does, and this has been a big question in my mind for quite a while, which is the difference between the Krav Maga that is taught to civilians that's here in the United States versus what's taught in the Israeli military. How do those end up differing?
Well, for the most part, it's a lot of similarities. In the military, they basically have a very short period of time of training, that they have to get as much training done in however many weeks of training that they're going to be doing before they're pushed out into the field. So a big part of it is they need to train safely, but they also don't spend as much time training on some of these techniques, where here in the U.S., if you are a student and you're training on a regular basis, you actually have the opportunity to develop these skill sets even more, because you probably are going to get more training than the average Israeli, soldier, because you're going to train over a longer period of time. But you're still working through defenses that are instinctive, that can work for, it doesn't matter the size, and you're working the most vulnerable areas of the body. You want to be aggressive, more aggressive than your aggressor. Violence of action is what is most important. And you see that through the Krav Maga in the military. You see that in, most Krav Maga systems here in the U.S. The system that we train in, it's a big part of scenario training, and aggression training is a huge part of our training. And if you're not doing that sort of training, then you're not realistically training your students and your members to be able to really handle what's going on in the street. If you're not training them to be violent, which, that is reality, then honestly, you're probably going to, they're not training for the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, the real world is very fast and very violent. There's no bowing.
No, there's not. But,
yeah.
on the other hand, you have people who are coming into these Krav Maga programs and they've never thrown a punch a day in their life. And you're asking them to go up against a guy that's twice his size. There is a progression to our training, and that we don't want you to walk away after your first class and never come back. So there is a build up. We have to, condition our students to get them to a level where they can find that fighting spirit and they can be as aggressive as they need to. And so it may be a slower progression, whereas in the military, they just throw you in there, right? And you have you really have no choice. Yeah. But they're also training for 10, 12 hours a day, where with our students, on average, a full-time, student is maybe taking 2 to 3 self-defense classes a week. I mean, we have some that train 5, 6, 7 days a week, but, your average person, it doesn't have that kind of time. So, it may be a slower progression to get them to where they need to be as far as, amping up that aggression level right off the bat. Now, we do. I just got done with a 2-hour women's self-defense class that we offer the first Saturday of every month. And in that class, at the end of the 2-hour class, we put them through a stress scenario drill. And a lot of them who have never been through a class before some of them cry, some of them just walk away, and I may never see them again because they're just so overwhelmed of what actually happened, the reality of some of this stress training, that maybe they'll come back, maybe they won't, but still at the end of the day, even in that 2-hour class, we're putting them through some scenario stress training where they have to fight off an attacker and they have to do it aggressively, even if they don't have all the answers and all the skills to be able to do so, because, they may walk outside after the class and be attacked. Well, okay. We want to give them, even in a 2-hour class, the reality of what it's like to be attacked.
How often does that happen, that somebody doesn't come back? Just out of curiosity.
With women, probably more so than men.
Really?
Yeah, that don't come back after these trainings. But a lot, even the women that I have not seen back, they still see the value in it. Like, they saw, they enjoyed, but some people just don't really want to put their bodies through some of that. Right. In theory, it sounds good, but in reality, some of them may not want to or aren't ready to push their bodies to that point. Plus, we get a lot of women that have been victims, that have been attacked in the past. And that can recreate some, old feelings of what happened to them. They relive these attack situations. Some of them, break down and aren't ready to move past that. Others embrace it and realize that, hey, this is an opportunity for this to never happen to me again. I've had women because we talked a little bit about the fear and adrenal stress training. As a part of that training, at the end, we have all of our students, they have to participate in a fully padded fight, a realistic fight against a fully padded instructor. What that does is that gives them an opportunity to see what it's like to be in a real fight situation, actually hitting the attack with full force, not holding back, but also letting them see what it's really like to be in a fight, to experience all of the adrenal responses that happen to your body under stress. So they get to see that and feel that, but also know that if they had to fight back, they could. I mean, it definitely brings up a lot of emotions in some people, especially people that may have been victims of an attack situation before. I had a particular woman, we did a 4-hour course, It was a fear and adrenal stress training. Now, we work everyone up. So, I mean, it's not, we don't just throw you in and, you know, good luck. I mean, the whole class is a build up to the last hour where they have to fight back. And every single student does this one at a time while everyone else watches them fight. And basically what happens, we work through different techniques, self-defense techniques slowly, and get them comfortable. And at the end, they have to do a fight based off of whatever the topic or whatever self-defense, whatever techniques we were working in that particular workshop. And their eyes are closed. We will always demo the fight. I will demo with one of my instructors beforehand, so they know exactly what's going to happen. They know as far as what the attack is going to be, where it's going to come from, what is expected of them, so they can see it. And then every one of them have to do it one at a time. They're in the middle, their eyes closed. There's a coach there with them. I'm normally right there behind them, coaching them through the whole scenario, but they have to fight the attacker off of them and get to safety. And if they don't fight that person off, then that person doesn't go away. They have to keep going until they actually have successfully beaten that person to where they can run or get to safety. And through all of that, not only when you're watching that happen, you get to work through that scenario every time in your head till it's your turn. And even if you've seen it 10 times before, it doesn't make it any easier when you go, because your eyes are closed. You know it's coming. You don't know when it's going to happen. And you have to full force fight this person off of you and knee them and kick them and do whatever to get them off. And that's the reality of defending yourself on the street. So this one particular female, she had been attacked before. And when we got to her portion of the fight, she closed her eyes. And then about 4 or 5 times, she's like, wait, I can't do this. I can't do it. And if they don't want to do it, it's okay. We understand. We're not making anybody do anything they don't want to do. But she was so upset because she was reliving the scenario, the attack situation that had happened to her in the past. And I was right there. We're coaching her. We're right there with her. And she finally let it happen. She let one of my instructors attack her. And the wrath that she unleashed on my instructor, I was so proud of her, because she afterwards, she cried. She cried through the whole thing, and that's fine. That happens too. It's common. I think I've cried at some points in some of my training. I mean, it is what it is. Afterwards, she felt so, she had closure. She's like, I actually won this time. All she did was envision her attacker. And this time she was beating him up and she was winning, and she got to experience what it was like to not be that victim anymore. And so like just in that 4-hour class of getting her to where she was extremely timid, she was so upset through most of the class. And at the end, it's an emotional experience for most people. I mean, you're adrenalized, you're being attacked. And yes, it's staged, but our bodies don't know any different. You're still being attacked and you still have to fight someone off of you. So all of the adrenal stress responses that happen are happening to you while you're trying to fight this fully padded guy off of you. Anyway, afterwards, she was she had taken a turn, and a great turn, and she felt so much more confident in herself that, hey, you know what? I can fight back. If I had to, I can actually do this. So that's a big part. It's important for our students to know that if they had to, as a last resort, they could fight back. And offering like this type of training working through that fear, working through that adrenaline, through that stress, because that's the reality of what's going to be happening to your body. Now, it's also going to be happening to your attacker as well, and that's things that we talk about in that training also is they're also adrenalized. They're also experiencing all these same things that you are experiencing. And our goal is just to be bigger, stronger, faster, and more aggressive and more violent than our aggressor. And through this type of scenario training, we're able to give our students a taste of what it's really like to be able to fight back. And having the confidence and the empowerment to be able to know that and to be able to do that is huge, because self-defense is all about mindset. It's about having the mindset to fight back if we need to. So it's some great training. It's awesome training. If I had 4 hours with people, this is the type of training we would do. If I have 4 hours, I know I'm never going to see them again. This would be the type of training we would give to our students.
Very cool. But so when does self-defense not become effective? As unarmed hand-to-hand combat self-defense, when does that not become effective?
We get in our regular classes, well, what if this, or what if that, or what if they do this, or what if they do that? There's 1,000 what if scenarios. If I allow somebody to sink a choke in so tight, wrap my legs around, and I haven't done anything at that point, well, that technique is not going to be effective, because violence of action and reacting as soon as an attack comes on are keys to being effective in hand-to-hand. It's the same way. If I don't draw my firearm out and I'm attacked, well, it's not going to do me any good because I don't have access to it and I'm not using it. Same way, if I don't react, if I just allow, if I am so caught off guard or I don't do anything and they're able to sink in a choke or sink in a rear naked choke, where there is a point where these techniques aren't going to work because I've done nothing I've allowed them to get in such a situation that I'm not able to react. So in our training, we talk about the flip of the switch, being able to react as soon as possible. It's better to be proactive than reactive, but, we get complacent, we get caught off guard. This happens to the best of us. And being able to go from nice and relaxed to, aggressive in this flip of the switch, that's also something that is learned and we train on, to not allow the attack to get so deep or so locked on that you can't react because
point of no return.
There is a point of no return on anything. Yeah. So, if you allow it to get to that point, the technique is not going to work.
Where did firearms come in for you? At what stage of all of this? And I guess, and why?
Well, I'm a big proponent of firearms, and I think it is a great equalizer, especially for smaller builds versus larger attackers. But on the same token, if you're not training and you're not practicing in firearms, well, it's not going to work for you either. So I think it's a very big part of our training. We are teaching our students how to disarm knives and disarm firearms. And I think it's irresponsible to not also know how to know the basics of a firearm and how to use it if need to, even if it's a cold weapon, and at least knowing the mechanics of it and not being so afraid of it that you can't even function if a gun is in the room. And I mean, we have a lot of people that are like that, quite honestly. I mean, they
really?
Oh yeah. A lot of women. And it's just, I think, things that we've heard or seen, or, people think that, it's movies. It's things that we see in Hollywood. Well, that's not realistic, but people, that's what they see and that's what they think is real. Or they've been raised a certain way and, they don't really understand how a firearm functions. And especially in handguns. Like I've had a lot of women, and because we do women's only firearms classes, a lot of people think that a gun can just go off.
Yeah.
Sitting in the room over on the counter, that it could just, accidentally go off. Well, part of it is just knowledge and educating people on the basics and the mechanics of how a firearm actually works. And since 1980, or firearms are drop safe. You're not going to drop your firearm and it's not going to like tumble down the stairs and just be firing off. Like I think in one of the movies I've seen lately, so that's.
Yeah. Like in True Lies, where the Uzi falls down. Yes. Yeah.
That doesn't happen. But when you don't have any education on firearms, well, what do people revert back to? Well, I saw that in a movie, and you get a lot of that. Mm-hmm. So we debunk that a lot through we have some things that we can do that we show them that, okay, I can chunk this gun out and it's not going to accidentally go off. It's human error that most likely firearms will discharge. There's a finger on a trigger.
Somebody's booger hook was on the bank switch.
Booger hook on the bank switch. So there's a lot of that. And a big part of it is just talking about safety and the mechanics of a firearm and how it works to make our students feel more comfortable, at least, that, okay, here's Hollywood, here's reality, how do we work with that? But back to your original question, I am definitely, a big proponent of, we have access to carry a firearm here in Texas. Gotta love Texas. But if you're going to make the decision that you want to carry a firearm, either if it's for home defense in your home or it's to carry on your person, you need to train with it, and you need to train regularly. Just like if you want to be the best hand-to-hand practitioner you can, the more training that you receive, the better prepared you're going to be.
Mm-hmm. So you've brought this up a couple of times, women's only classes. The women's only self-defense classes has always made sense to me, but why is there such a large interest in women's only firearm classes?
Couple of reasons. One, most of your firearms instructors, a lot of them have a military background. They can be a little intimidating. If you've ever been to a group firearms class, it's like 99% men. Mm-hmm. Like when I was really first getting into like firearms training, I would be the only woman with 20 men. Yeah. And that can be very intimidating, especially when you don't know anything about a firearm. You think it goes off on its own. You've seen all this stuff in Hollywood. It's just our socialization and what our perceptions are of firearms. It can be quite intimidating for a woman to go in with and some of the firearms instructors I had were very militant. They yell at you, and, if you don't do it right, how they said, they scream in your face. And, well, I don't know that translates that well for some women. Like, I don't want to be yelled at. I don't learn that way. Women learn differently than men. There's books out on it. It's true, like.
How so?
So when I teach firearms classes for women, for example, when you tell a woman, all right, align the sights and press the trigger. Well, okay, yes, you could probably tell a man that, and, that would be all good and fine, but you need to articulate it differently for a female. Align the sights, continue to align the sights as you press the trigger. It's just how you speak to them and how our brains operate that you need to tell them exactly how it needs to happen. Don't just align the sights and shoot. Well, it's not, there is more to it than that, so we talk about the differences in that. And that's just one example of, how women learn differently than men. Women also take instruction a lot better than men do.
Yes, they do.
So, at least from my experience. And there's a lot of machismo when you're dealing with firearms and men. And even if a guy has never, shot a firearm, he's still seen the movies, and there's that perception of, being macho and, oh, well, I'm just shooting fire. And with women, women want to know more. They need to understand, really the ins and outs. And so we really just talk about we break it down a little bit differently for women. We maybe describe it a little bit different.
Is it that you describe it in more detail, or is it?
I would say yes. Because like I said, you can tell a man something and he's just going to aim and shoot. Not always. I'm generalizing.
Right.
And again, in my experience as well. In teaching a guy how to shoot versus teaching a female how to shoot, they want to know every little detail. Whereas a guy, they just want to point and go for the most part, at least in the beginning. If you can really give women the most detail of, okay, yes, I'm aligning the sights, but I have to continue to align the sights as I press the trigger. That translates and makes sense to women, where maybe it will to a man. I mean, you can tell a man that too, but that was true for me as well. When I was really first learning to shoot, I had an aha moment a year into my training, where somebody explained it to me this way, because when I first learned, all right, align the sights, press the trigger. Okay. Well, I kept clutching low and to the left. I mean, part of that is smashing the trigger. But when someone said, let's continue to align the sights as you're pressing the trigger and keep, it just clicked in my head. And I had that aha moment of, that makes sense. So, and there are books out. I think is it Vicky Farnham? I think it's Vicky Farnham has a really good book on how to teach women how to shoot. I can't remember the title of it. It's a really great book. If any male instructors really want to understand how to teach women how to shoot, it's a really great book on learning to articulate and how to describe to a female how to properly fire a firearm versus a man.
Just squeeze and go like a man. Yeah.
Yeah. We like a little bit more detail to be able to
This sounds an awful lot like sex.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Men are just point me in the right direction and I'm just going to go for it. Yeah. And girls are like, no, slow down. Take your time. Let me understand what's going on here. Spend a little more time on things. I got you. Okay. That's funny. I guess speaking of copulating, how has having a child changed, or has it even changed the way you train and the way that you keep firearms around the house and stuff? Like, how has kids interrupted your mix?
A big time. She's interrupted it completely. No. My lack of training time, for one thing. And just having to get more creative, not only with my training, but, before, when it was just my husband and I, we secured our firearms, but they weren't necessarily in a locked up safe out in the garage, but they were secure in that both he and I knew exactly where they were. They were out of reach. I could keep my gun in my purse if I had it in there and not worry about anybody but my husband, and now, it's really, really, especially she's 15 months now and she's in everything. So we have had to change our practices, both he and I, because, we both carry on our person. I carry more so in my purse, mostly because it's hard for me. I wear yoga tight spandex most of the time and tight shirts. So for me to conceal on my person becomes very difficult. But as soon as my daughter was born, we started making it a habit of changing right now before she can get into anything, grab anything, securing our firearms in certain safes. We also have them out of reach of even me. I can't even reach them. I've got to get a ladder and crawl up and, get access to certain firearms in our house. But for the most part, they stay in the safe.
I got you. That makes sense. So like as far as like a bedside firearm, because I asked that because right now, basically, I just take my whole Kydex holster off and with the gun in it and everything, and I just stick the whole thing in the nightstand just to keep things out of the trigger.
Of view, right.
Yeah, and so that like a random cord or something like that can't get caught up in the trigger. And I guess that would be a fear of mine. Like, how do you get to your weapon quickly if it's around your bed or something like that? How do y'all deal with that?
So we actually have a safe mounted to the bottom under the bed. It is a small safe. It's a finger, it's a finger code. And so that under stress, it's easy to remember. You don't have to think. I don't even look. I feel and I do the code and the safe will open up. We have room for one pistol in there and it is holstered so that you can pull the whole thing out and have access to that.
I gotcha. Okay.
So, and then we also have a shotgun that we keep in our room. And before, quite honestly, it used to stay under our bed, but it no longer is there. We have, it's in a closet up at the very top on hooks, hidden where you couldn't see it, but both he and I know where it is. I have to like prop up onto the nightstand and onto another something else to be able to get it. So yes, it slows down your response time, but part of it is training as well. We're kind of dorky, like, wouldn't say dorky, but we're kind of like, we do scenario training in our own home and we practice being startled, able to get out of bed, working through these scenarios as well, getting to the pistol under the bed or getting to the shotgun that it's up out of reach in the closet, because that's part of it too. And if you're not training to do that, your response time is going to be way slower. And the reality is you're probably not going to get to it in time.
Yeah. Do you ever run into instances where you've got couples that either the man or the woman or whatnot is resistant to the other person getting into firearms or the other person getting into self-defense training?
All the time, mostly firearms. It's mostly the female is not comfortable with the man having it in the house. The way that we really try to work around that is I will offer for the woman to come do a firearms class with me at no charge. Because
that's cool.
Knowledge, education is really what I think changes their perception. I mean, I think we should always have a level of fear of firearm and not get complacent and comfortable with it, but always respect it. And if you can get the partner, whether it's male or female, to at least have that, to see that and see the importance of it. And if learning the safety and learning the ins and outs of, okay, debunking the fears or the things that they heard on TV or in the movies, if you can get past all of that, we have had quite a bit of success with the wife being open to the husband getting a firearm at that point, or at least like allowing them to have one in the home if it's within a safe, or, if you can safely store it out of the reach of children or others. So that has worked really well for us actually. And we get this more than you would think probably. And it's usually the woman that is not comfortable, but they've also never even held a firearm. They don't have any idea how it works or anything that goes into it. So if you can educate them, they tend to be more receptive to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, especially with this audience, that they're not surprised to hear that. I mean, that is something that a lot of people end up dealing with is a reluctant spouse. I hear that question at least once a month, maybe more often via email. So it doesn't surprise me at all. And that's a good thing. I mean, I think that's a great suggestion. Like them basically like here, actually become educated about it. Don't rely on whatever news media or whatever movie you saw
or their spouse. and a lot of times the spouses don't know any more than the man don't know any more than the wife, but they think they do. And that's a whole nother subject. But if you can, at least make them feel comfortable about what's going on and it's worked really well for us to have these female only classes, because then the husband can't come and give their 2 cents. We can cut them out and, really give the women an idea of, okay, here's reality. And part of it too is, okay, I am a petite female. I'm not a police officer. I wasn't in the military. A lot of female firearms instructors, and I think it's changing, but there are not that many female firearms instructors that are like normal civilian women. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I think we all get where you're driving at with that. Yeah. So no, that makes perfect sense.
These women, I think, can relate a little bit more to that. And that, okay, I'm a normal woman. I have a family, a daughter. Like, yes, this is what I do for a living, but like, I was just like them 10 years ago. I hadn't ever well, that's not true. I mean, I grew up in the country, but that doesn't mean I was properly trained in firearms. I knew how to shoot a shotgun and, but you're shooting tin cans or you're shooting, the fish or whatever, I don't know how much safety there was to that, but, I hadn't done any of that until I really got involved in all this. And, for women to see that, hey, you don't have to be in the military or be a police officer to be able to successfully defend yourself, whether it's hand to hand or with a firearm. You don't have to spend years and years training on this stuff to be effective. It helps, but you don't have to dedicate your whole life to be able to have the tools to defend yourself, whether it's with a firearm or hand to hand. But I think you need to know how to do both, because that is going to make you that much more effective in your defense. I mean, if I could shoot someone, I would. I'd rather do that than have to fight them off with my hands, especially if they're twice my size. Why would I want to, like I said, like a firearm can be a great equalizer, but it can also be a liability if you don't have the training that is needed to be able to use that firearm under stress without question of how it operates. Is the safety on? Is it loaded? And if you question that at all in your training, then you shouldn't be carrying a firearm. And it's going to be a liability against you anyway. And if you are not dedicated to put that kind of training in, then you shouldn't be carrying. I mean, in my honest opinion, because you're irresponsible at that point.
I agree. Absolutely.
We have people all the time that come in and are like, oh, hey, I need to get my license to carry now. I mean, the whole open carry thing, but that's a whole other topic. They want to get their license to carry, but they don't own a gun and they've never been to any basic firearms classes. I'm like, no, you need to, first of all, get some training. We also help women pick a gun that is going to be appropriate for them in their situation. And this is also that a lot of men will buy their women a gun. Mm-hmm. My husband bought me my first gun. That was the worst decision ever. He didn't. I mean, like it's like wearing a glove. It's not one size fits all, and it's not one situation that fits all. I have different firearms based off of how I'm going to be carrying. Is it going to be on my person? Is it in my purse? It's not as simple as, oh, hey, I'm just going to get this. And, there's a lot more that goes into it. So, we give women the tools of, okay, you need to get some basic training, first of all, the minimum. And don't let your husband or your spouse or your boyfriend or whoever pick your gun out. You need to try out different weapons. based on hand size, hand strength. There's a lot that goes into it. And and in our women's classes, we focus a lot on that as well. The differences and how are you going to carry on your person? How are you going to carry with a child? Or, what is your intended purpose for it? As well as what kind of training do they have, or physical training? I have women that want to shoot a revolver because it's easy, but they can't even pull the trigger because it has a 20-pound trigger pull. So it's just like, okay, well, but they got it from their husband because it's easy and it's simple, and you've got to just like cut all that out and get them past some of that. And cutting the husband out of the equation is like the best. Sorry, guys, but it's true. Don't listen to your spouse on get some proper firearms training. Every guy thinks he knows how to shoot a gun.
Yeah. I didn't even train my own wife. I sent her to somebody and she asked me to, and I was like, absolutely not. I will help you pick your gun. I will go with you while you try out everything in the store, but I will not teach you how to shoot. No, that's going to be somebody else. I will pay for it all, but somebody else is doing it.
Yeah. And that's how it should be.
Yeah. So speaking of training and all of this, you've got a pretty cool class coming up. So wait, and I guess, is the class women only, or is this boys and girls?
It's boys and girls. So we have it's a combat pistol class. We are partnering with Tactical Fitness Austin. The guy, his name is Ron Groban. He is a former, he was in the Israeli military. He was a former sniper. And he and I are partnering up, and we're running this class. It is a full day. It's called Combat Pistol. We're combining the fundamentals of pistol shooting basics with hand-to-hand. And then transitioning from hand-to-hand into firearms and vice versa. Because
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's real. I mean, it's realistic. Right? If you were in an attack situation, if you don't already have your firearm out at the time that the attack happened, well, you're not going to have access to that weapon anyway. So you may have to fight someone off to get space to get to that gun, or vice versa. So it's not always, oh, well, I have a gun, that's all I need. I mean, you hear that a lot. And I think that's a very ignorant my view on that is you're not always going to have access. You can't take your weapon everywhere. And even if you do have it, unless you train all the time, deploying that weapon from concealment in under 1.5 seconds, good luck,
Yeah, and I think the other problem too is not every situation needs lethal violence.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Sometimes somebody just needs a good smack across the face and they'll go, oh, okay, I got it. Not my thing. Or there's the other problem, like you were saying, 1.5 seconds. From my understanding, these things tend to happen in close. And sometimes there's just that's not the first thing you're able to do as far as like getting your gun into the fight. Sometimes your fists are going to be in the fight while you're trying to get to your gun. That's always been my understanding. Is that what you found?
No, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
and that is why we are offering these types of classes, because that's real world. To say that you're only going to do one or the other, I don't think that's realistic.
Yeah. So when are y'all having this class?
This class is Saturday, February 25th, which at the end of this month. I think that's the last Saturday in February. Mm-hmm. It will be out at the impact zone shooting range, which is, it's kind of a hike out to,
yeah.
It's an outdoor range. We're able to do a lot of dynamic training out there, and that's why we really train out that range. If you take I-10 out past Brookshire, it's kind of in between Hempstead and Brookshire. It's a full day class. We are offering the option to do just the half day, and it's a pistol fundamentals. It'll be the morning will be just fundamentals of pistol. Then the first part of the afternoon, we'll be working hand-to-hand defenses, different scenarios. And then we put it together at the end where you may be fighting someone off, we do this with a lot of scenario, a lot of pad work, where you're striking pads or you're having to work your way through a crowd, and go from hand to hand into transitioning into that firearm. And then again,
Very
vice versa.
cool.
You may need to, fight back.
Well, very cool. Well, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you and find out all about you and sign up for your classes and all that other fun stuff? Where should they go? Where do we send them today?
Well, you can go to our website, which is fightbackfit.com. We also are on social media, Facebook, Instagram. We blast a lot of our stuff on Facebook. So, I mean, that would be ideal. You can find all of our information on our website also. We do schedule of classes, our upcoming events. We always post our everything on all our social media channels also. So really any of those, you can call me, email me, text me. We're
Awesome.
pretty open. We'll take anything.
Pretty connected.
Yeah.
So what's the website address one more time?
Fightbackfit.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today, Jeanna.
Absolutely, Aaron. Thank you for having me.
Show notes, links to Jeanna, and resources from this episode can be found at intherabbithole.com/205. Get great membership benefits and support the show. Go to itrh.net. The show, as many of you know, is supported nearly entirely by listeners just like you. Again, go to itrh.net to find out more. With that, we wrap up episode 205 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.